Hey everyone, this is Dr. Casey Johnson. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Chef Annette, better known by That Veggie Gurl. Annette's story is incredible and her work is transforming so many lives, so I'm excited to have her on to share a story with you guys. If you've been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnson. You can also check out my website at drkaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, also be sure to check out the Shop tab where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series and learn about the Unlock Wellness Project, which supplies a wellness bag to a child in need for each book purchased. Thank you again for listening. I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Chef Annette. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Chef Annette, also known by That Veggie Gurl if you're following her on social media. But Chef Annette is a master holistic health coach and is host of Let's Veg About It podcast. And her goal is to inspire and educate others to utilize plant-based foods to prevent, repair, and reverse chronic health issues. And her story is amazing, and she's a stage 4 cancer survivor, so she really understands the importance of true health and just not to take it for granted. So I'm just excited for her to share her inspiring story with you guys and just everything that she's working on. So Chef Annette, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so why don't we just kind of dive into a little bit to your backstory a little bit, kind of where you're from, and then kind of walk us through what your health looked like at a younger age and really just how that's progressed over time.
Well, when it comes to where I'm from, my family is from Cleveland, but I was raised down south. And it's interesting that you asked about my health issues from a childhood standpoint, because I definitely had childhood health issues my entire life. It didn't really start with cancer. It was something that was an ongoing thing. And even now, being healthy, once you started making those changes, my mom and my family started saying, well, you had this issue. And my mom even said when I was a baby that they had to search all over to find and even milk for me to drink because I couldn't have any milk but goat's milk. And my dad had to drive every week to a farm to get goat's milk because that was the only thing that I could take. And I had so many food allergies. And of course, that would have been like a telltale sign to really be more diligent about what I was eating, but that just wasn't the case. I just ended up culturally eating what my family ate, and it just really started causing me health problems throughout my childhood years, throughout my middle school years, and then they just started getting worse as I went to high school and also in college.
Yeah, so so as you went through, high school and college, and you said that progressed, was it like just more like the allergy stuff? Like you just noticed like you weren't handling like dairy and things like that very well? Or was it like weight, or was it kind of just a combination of all of those things?
It was a combination of things, but I had anemia issues and I was hospitalized several times, all the time, especially when my cycle would come up. It was so bad, in fact, that I would even pass out in school, in middle school and high school.
Wow.
And it really got worse in college. And when I was in college in my junior year, I found a specialist, and the specialist was like, oh, you have Crohn's disease. And I remember being so excited to be diagnosed with something because for years, people and our friends and our families just really thought I was a hypochondriac because I was always in the hospital and they would always just say, oh, you're anemic. They would pump me full of iron and then I would go home. And now all of it makes sense, going forward. But at the time, it was just like, really what's going on. And so I lived thinking I had Crohn's, and the health issues continued as I was, after I finished school, I was teaching, and my health issues were still the same. I was even passing out in front of students at times. And I just was like, hey, I just have Crohn's disease, and this is just something I'm going to have to live with. And that definitely was not the case. It was a misdiagnosis. And that was the beginning of things really, really changing for me.
Yeah. And even though you sort of said it was a misdiagnosis, like, that's like, it's a hard diagnosis because, they'll be like, oh, Crohn's disease, or like, even if they were like, oh, you have IBS too. It's like, those things are obviously inflammatory issues, but they can't pinpoint it and be like, oh, this is the exact issue causing your problems. We have a cure for this at that. You know what I mean? Like, that's a pretty discouraging diagnosis when you get a diagnosis like that.
Yeah.
So
it was.
Yeah. And like, so you said it was misdiagnosed. So what did they end up switching it to, or how did they figure that out?
It wasn't really a switch. This is where I would really want to say to like everybody that's having health issues, really be an advocate for yourself and really push back when it comes to things that are going on in your body, especially if something is, if you, in your mind and your heart, something else is wrong and you're not getting the help, you're not, getting that situation figured out. You just have to keep pushing on and go from doctor to doctor to doctor. What actually ended up happening to me, I was teaching in a different state at the time, and I was having a lot of health issues to the point where I was waking up in the middle of the night and my entire bed was completely drenched in water. I was just sweating. And I was having so much trouble getting up in the morning. My stomach was swollen, but again, I thought it was just the Crohn's, and it was getting progressively worse. And the reason why I said I was in a different state, I was a different state for my family. And my mom was concerned, and she was so concerned that she flew in surprisingly and was knocking on my door one morning. And I was like, what are you doing here? And she was like, something is wrong with you. It's more than Crohn's. I have a feeling, and you're going to the ER today. And I was like, not happy, but I mean, when your mom gets on the plane, there's not really much you can do.
Right. The damage is done. We are going.
Yeah, it's not up for negotiation. There's no let's talk about it. So we went to the ER that day, and the first we went to a clinic, and the clinic was like, oh, you're just pregnant. And I was like, that's not even possible.
Right.
Like, I'm not pregnant. It's like, oh, well, then you're just, you're just having a swollen gut type of issue. And I'm so thankful of two things in the situation. First, well, really three doctors. First, the next person I saw was a nurse practitioner, and she just said, I have a feeling something is really wrong. And she was just like, asking me a series of questions. And she was just like, you know what, Annette, we're going to send you to the ER. And in fact, when you get to the ER, they're going to know you're there. So when we get there, they already knew I was coming. So of course, you have anxiety. You're just like, okay, this isn't good.
Right.
And so then we're there for a couple of hours. Some of our friends come, to hang out with my mom and myself. And then the ER doctor comes in, he swings back the curtain, Casey, very dramatic, very, Grey's Anatomy-like. And he says, how long were you walking around with this thing in your body? And I said, what thing? He said, oh, you don't know? You have an 8-pound tumor. And It crushed your right ovary. And we're going to have to do emergency surgery. I was like, no, I have Crohn's disease.
No, the nurse said I was pregnant. Let's go with that one.
And he's like, no.
Oh, man.
And he was like, how long have you had this? And I'm like, I have no idea. So, of course, it's just like, at that moment, my mom got on the phone and started calling everybody. She was like, she has something. She has something else. And everybody was like, yay. But it wasn't really celebratory.
Right.
So, of course, after that situation, you think, okay, good. I'll have surgery. I'll go back to my normal life. Fast forward, I relocated back to the same area that my mom was living in because she was like, I'm not coming back down here if you get sick again. So I went back to teaching, and I was happy in my life. But the one thing that the ER doctor told me, he was like, Annette, if you ever feel anything again that's weird or you don't feel right in your body, please immediately go to the ER. So some months went by, and I was starting to feel tired again. I wasn't to the point where I wasn't able to get up, but my body was just constantly drained, even though I was having tons of caffeine, which of course was not helping my system, and having tons of sugary treats to get through the day, with my students. And it was so to the point where I was like, you know what, I need to go to the doctor, but I didn't really want to go. And that day we were doing a tutoring camp, and myself and I was telling another teacher, I said, something's wrong. And she's like, I'm going with you. And I'm like, it's not that serious. She's like, it is. And so I went there to the ER. The ER doctors came in and they're just like, okay, you have several tumors. And I'm like, okay. And they said, we're going to need to send you to a specialist. And we don't really know what's going on. And so I went to a specialist, and I went to the specialist. And this is really the saving grace, I would say, of my whole cancer wellness journey. Was I got to a specialist that was young. She was in her 30s. And I really just cried when I got into her office. I was like, look, I've been dealing with health issues pretty much my entire life. I said, everybody thinks I'm crazy. They think nothing is wrong with me. And I said, y'all are saying that there's some abnormalities in my blood. They're saying this and that. And I said, I just really need someone to be really more investigative and see what's going on with me. And she was so sweet, so kind, very professional. And she says, okay, well, we're going to test you for everything. And I said, okay. And 2 weeks go by, nothing happened. So of course I'm like, okay, I'm in the clear. I'm good. So she calls me and she's like, have you not gotten your test results? And I said, no. She says, well, have you gone to the hematology center to, get more testing done? And I said, no. She's like, why haven't they called you? I'm like, I don't know. I thought I was fine. I didn't hear from you. I didn't hear from anybody. She's like, well, your records actually got pulled from another hospital when I submitted them. So she said, something is definitely going on because a bigger hospital pulled your blood panels and all your testing. So she said, let me call them and see what's going on. And so that's when the whole cancer wellness journey began. And after going to, get further testing, they did more blood testing that day. And then the doctor that day sent me to get scans and images done. And the next 2 days later, he called me and he was like, you have stage 4 cancer. And your cancer is extremely rare. You have a very rare form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he was like, it's progressed so much that there's not really much we can do. He said, looking at everything, you have, very few months to live. Wow. And it's like, oh, okay. And, I was about to turn 30. And so it was just like, this is not in my plan. I was happy in my career and what I was doing. And so at that point, it was a situation where I was just concerned about my quality of life. I wasn't really thinking that I was going to come out of the situation alive. I didn't think I was going to be a cancer survivor. That was never the goal. The goal was just to have a good quality of life.
Man, no, that's just so crazy. Like you said, 29, that's just insane. Like you said, that's not part of the game plan, right? Like you don't think that that's ever going to be your situation. Man. So what were the next steps from there? Were you researching hardcore, or I know your goal was quality of life, but what were some of the things that you were doing to make sure you could increase that quality?
Well, as an educator, you always start doing research.
Right.
And their whole thing, conventionally was we want to be able to look at you to see how we can help people in the future, but we're not going to be able to help you. And I'm like, I'm not going to be nobody's guinea pig. Guinea pig. That wasn't happening. So I went on YouTube University. I was watching every documentary known to man and just starting to have an understanding that food was really going to be something that was going to help me, build up my immune system. But there was just so much conflicting information. And even with all the documentaries I was writing, watching, it was just which way do I start? Which way do I go? And one thing that kept coming up was having, raw food and having juices. But I was like, what do I do? So Casey, I started emailing everybody and their mama. I was in the credits, sending messages to people, emailing them, hey, this is my story. This is what's going on. Please tell me what to do. And this went on for weeks. And a lot of times I didn't get any responses, or the responses I got were, sorry, can't help you, And the first person I reached out to had a raw wellness, education class online. And she was so kind. And she says, I'm going to give you all my eBooks and I'm going to let you be in my boot camp so that you can understand what raw food was. And I was like, okay. So I just started doing everything that was in her books and what I learned from her boot camp. And, making the juices, eating the food, trying to understand this whole raw vegan thing and what it was like. But I still kept emailing people. And that's how I connected with my mentor and my health coach and friend, and later on, because I kept emailing people. When I emailed him, he was really intrigued by my story and what I was dealing with. And he was like, you know what, I'm going to take you on. And he was like, my rates are really expensive. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to afford this? Mm-hmm. And he's just like, no, I'm going to coach you absolutely for free. Because he was like, and that's how it started. And it was a very, very different. I mean, jumping, full feet, head feet in, into the deep end of the pool, basically. And it was a very long, intense 22 months, for the whole process. But after 22 months, I was declared cancer-free.
That's amazing. And whenever you started this other guy's program that the guy you were just talking about, was it mainly raw food as well, or how was it different from the boot camp that you had done previously?
Well, his program was more customized, more targeted. His specialization is he's a raw foodist. I didn't ask his permission to say his name, so I don't want to say his name, and he'll be like, "Why are you saying my name?" Don't worry. But he's a raw chef, and he specializes working with people with, terminal health issues and things of that nature. So he used some aspects of, raw veganism and also certain aspects of Gerson therapy because he's Gerson certified. So that was a combination. I mean, I was having, 120 ounces of juice every single day. I was having a huge cancer fighting salad every day. Tons of different spices. And the thing about him is that his training, he's also a nurse practitioner as well. So once things started improving and changing within 6 months of doing his wellness protocol, my doctor that was just doing my scans and giving me iron infusions to keep me built up was starting to see my tumor shrink and my blood, everything in my blood work was improving. And he's like, what's going on? Are you going somewhere, getting something done? And I'm like, no, I'm just eating veggies. And he was like, I don't think so.
It's that coffee enema. Well, Gerson's coffee enema, right? Or is that
right? Yeah, I was doing coffee enema too. And he thought I was the biggest lunatic on the world, but at the same time, he's a scientist, so he was the changes. So then he started letting him in, my health coach in, and I wouldn't say started partnering, but he started, giving him access to my scans, giving him access to my blood work. That's awesome. Then he was able to target and customize and change, my juicing recipes and things of that nature. And, I just kept improving on steadily. Now, I don't want people to think that this was an easy process because it wasn't. Because I think that people think, you see, these documentaries and they're just like, oh, wow, I was better and it was so great. Nah, when you're detoxing and resetting your system, mm-hmm. Depending on how intense and how much acid you've built up into your body, it's no joke. I mean, the process I went through, I wouldn't say as intense as going through chemo or radiation, but it's very, very close. I mean, the chills.
It would have to be. Yeah, the chills. It's probably 10 times like a drug detox, it would
mm-hmm.
have to be.
Oh, and it's not just physical, it's mental, it's emotional. Yeah. There's so many things that you go through. And it was a hard, long process, not only just for me, but my mom was my caretaker. She was the one who was still working full time for the most part of my journey. And she was juicing every morning. She was juicing every night. It got to the point where my body was deteriorating because, of course, the cancer cells don't want to be evicted from the body. So they're fighting, it's kind of like, a Tyson Muhammad Ali type situation. Yeah. And you're giving all these nutrients, but then the cancer cells are like, nah, we want to stay. So you feel the full brunt of that going on. And so, I started losing my teeth. My hair did fall out. I lost sight temporarily in one of my eyes. I started having problems with my hip and my spine and just painful situations to the point where I had a walker at one point. Then I went, I had a cane at first, then I went to a walker. And then in the middle parts of my process, I was in a wheelchair.
Man. So it definitely got super worse before it got better.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think that is important for people to realize, like you said, it's not just, oh, I had a juice today, I'm good to go. Because you have to think about how what was the serving size of it? How much juice were you having a day again?
I was having 120 ounces of juice.
Okay. So if you've never made juice before, that process alone, that's a lot of work. So, I mean, that's a lot of that's awesome that you had your mom there to help just along that process because I mean, that process alone, that takes a lot. Like juicing is a lot of work. And like,
it is.
And that's just like the tip of the iceberg with your process. Like that's not even, you know what I mean? Like that's just like part of it. And there's so much more. So no, I'm glad you touched on just how like difficult it really is. But I mean, that's incredible that you were able to just stay consistent with it, even though like you said, like you're losing your hair and you're losing your teeth. And like a lot of people would, I mean, I could see how that would be super discouraging in that moment, but just that you were able to stick with that.
And it wasn't just me. It's really important that you have a support system. Chris Carr, friend in my head forever. And if you're battling cancer, if you haven't seen Crazy Sexy Cancer, it's definitely a documentary you should watch and read her books. But, you know, she says you're always at the house of healing. And in that process, you have to really be careful about who is in your life and who's in your circle. There's a chapter in her book where she says you have to be the CEO of your health, and you have to have this attitude of save, you know, fill in the blank, you know, .inc. It has to be that way, because if you don't have strong people around you, you will give up. And whether that's having a health coach, and even when you have a health coach, you still need supporting cast members in your crew. And that was the part that, you know, was interesting for me. And I always tell people when you're going through a healing process, your environment changes. Like I lost a lot of friends through my cancer process. I gained new friends through my cancer process. But if it hadn't have been for those key people, you know, my mom, one of my really good friends that we're still close, and now she's even vegan, and I wouldn't have made it through. I would have made it through that process, because there's a lot of people that don't understand, you know, when you're doing a holistic process, you know, they don't get it. They're not supportive. And you have to be in a situation where when you want to quit, that somebody else wants to fight for you.
Right. I mean, that goes with like any stage of life. You know, if you're growing as a person, like you're always going to need people that are on the same page. And like, it's always just keeping those people around and knowing who to keep around. Because like you said, like that energy is contagious, and you need like those kind of people around if you're going to fight through it. So no, that's amazing. You know, so what was the month that you said that you really started to be like, man, like this is, we're moving in the right direction. Like I can actually fight this thing.
I don't think it was really a month. I think it was just as the process went on, there was, you know, it was getting to the point where, you know, I was in so much physical pain, and it felt like it was like the beginning of the end in my mind. Even looking back when I, you know, talk about this, it's like, okay, this may not work out. Like, you know, this has been great. And even my mom, you know, when people talk to her, she said she knew that I was going to die. Like, you know, she was like, she was preparing to bury me. Wow. She was just trying to make sure I had a better quality of life. And it got to the point where there were certain days where I was able to get up and like go down the stairs and make my own salad, or I was able to make my own smoothie. You know, and, you know, those days started happening more frequently. And even with this process, one thing for me was, because I have a cooking background and grew up cooking at a very early age, my goal was always get to the point where I want to start cooking like vegan comfort food. So it was just like trying to get to the point where I had enough energy, I had enough strength where I could stand up and be into the kitchen. And that probably was like maybe 8 months before things, you know, 8 months toward the end of my journey, when things really started changing. And that's, you know, when I started doing more stuff for myself and, you know, going outside more and, you know, being able to walk without, you know, assistance, you know, maybe leaning on somebody, but not having to use a walker or a cane or anything like that.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I just blows my mind just how like intelligent the body is when you feel like what it actually needs. It's just blows my mind. Like I love it. And like, so you started to really progress amazingly, and you're doing more things for yourself. And like, when did it get to the point where they were like cancer free?
At 22 months. 22 months from the time I got diagnosed till I was like, there's no tumors anywhere in your entire body. Your blood work is pretty much perfect. And everybody was scratching their head like, you know, what happened? And that whole process, you know, that thing it's really bizarre, you know, Casey, because it's a situation where I was getting iron infusions, and I was going to the hospital on a regular basis to get those. And the weird thing about that whole situation is that there's other people in my life who got diagnosed with like stage 2 cancer and stage 3 cancer. And then a lot of women and kids that I met at the hospital. and none of them are here. They've all since passed away. And it gets me emotional because it's just like, wow, I took a road that was like less traveled, but I'm not the only person who's taken this road. And, we've, been able to have successes because we've taken this road. But it's just like so many people don't see that as an option because it's not presented. And it's just one of those things where it's just like
fear factor.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a fear factor. And then it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And a lot of sacrifices. My mom sold her car to pay for me to get, juicer and get a Vitamix and, get, certain kitchen essentials and even buying all the food. The food wasn't free, having garage sales and doing all these things, to be able to continue to buy the herbs, the medicine that you need at the pharmacia,
Right. But at the same time, like you understand like why that would be a fear factor, because obviously nobody wants to die. Like, it's like, if, you know what I mean? Like you don't really know, I guess, until you're in that situation and like, obviously you've lived it. But it's at the same time, like you understand why that would be like that fear factor would be there. But it's just like having that understanding about how intelligent the body is and like where you're at health wise, mind, body, spirit, all of that. And like, so, I understand like how that would happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I get it now too, because even now I'm grateful that I have so many, mentors and, colleagues, and I get to work with so many amazing doctors. And even, oncologists, I know they're like, we have to tell you that. We have to tell you that this is the treatment option, not just because it's, there's legal ramifications. So the intensity of saying you have to have chemo, you have to have radiation, it's like what we have to do legally to protect ourselves.
Right.
So, and once you understand that, because, people forget that, medicine is a business and there's laws and certain things that they have to adhere to. So it's just like, you have to be an advocate for yourself and your own health and wellness. And the body is smart. Like you were saying before, the body is smart. And if you give your body the right data, it can, activate and do what it's, supposed to do. And I'm so glad now, just being on the other end of the spectrum, of being, a wellness educator, because there's so many things that speaking to people, it's like, I know all the stuff that you're going to go through. Yeah. And it's like, when they call me, they're like, the doctor said this. I'm like, been there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a doctor obviously I'm sure has their heart in the right place, but like you've actually lived it and you know what that feels like emotionally and physically. And as much as any kind of physician wants to be there and help, like, it's a whole different world if you've actually gone through it and lived it, and just so much more, just credibility, I guess, and more trust.
Well, it's easier because even like when I was starting to get better and things were starting to improve, one thing, I almost said his name. One thing my health coach told me, said, you're going to start training now. I'm going to start helping you get, certified to be a health coach. And I was like, why? He's like, you're going to live. And he said, the way I help people is not going to be the same way that you can help people. And even sometimes when he deals with certain people and individuals, he'll tell me, hey, you need to partner with me on this person because I can't speak to them because I don't know what it's like. I don't know what that pain is like. I don't know what it's like, to hit that wall and feel like you want to give up. He's like, I haven't been in that mental headspace and you have. So it's one of those things that's like, in order for you to have a testimony, you have to have a test. So It's like, this was a big test for me for sure, but I'm grateful for the fact that I can use my pain to help somebody else in their wellness journey.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And like, so obviously that's how all of the coaching got started for you. And how long has it been since you've actually like started coaching?
I started my coaching business. I'm almost in getting close to, I'm in my fifth year. Awesome. Yeah. My fifth year. Yeah. And I'm an education junkie. So it was like, I got to the point where it's like, my mom and my friends like, you have to stop. And I'm like, but there's so many things there. You go to this one institute and you're like, oh, I want to go to this one. I want to go to this one. I'm like, this summer, this is it, because now they've changed the way the coaching is. And now they're making, bringing more validity to health and wellness coaches, because I think we get kind of dumbed down that, because we're not dietitians, we're not nutritionists, but there's a space for us. And so now the standards have changed, and now there's a national board certification testing that can be, administered, and that makes you be able to continue to work with doctors and hospitals. And now, if you're not national board certified, you can't work with doctors and hospitals. So that's my last thing. I got my master's in coaching, and now I'm able to take the national board certification test, and I will be taking it this year. So I can be nationally board certified, not just board certified, but nationally board certified. So
that's really cool. I mean, that's cool that they've made that program so you can communicate and like share information with doctors back and forth. And like, I love that. So like, obviously you said you've been doing this for your 5th year working with people. I mean, I can't imagine how rewarding, but at the same time, really hard, because you're kind of reliving some of this stuff, right? So like,
Oh yeah.
So if you just want to like touch for a second just on your experience with that, just how like you've been able to help other people, and just how that whole process has been for you.
In the beginning, I was really just trying to focus, just working with people that, had cancer, and it became really draining, because when you're in a position of being an educator and a healer and, basically a cheerleader for people, it, not only does it bring up your own stuff, but it's really draining. And, it was hard, because it was just like, you just go from one sad situation to another, and not that they weren't triumphant, because they were. But at the same time, it's a lot to do. And in the last 2 years, I've shifted where I balance things out, where I'm doing, working with individuals that have chronic health issues and varying ways with their varying health issues, whether it's fibromyalgia or MS and lupus, and partnering with doctors and, giving people just the support and encouragement that they need. Also doing cancer stuff too. But I've shifted into doing more wellness and veggie wellness education with children, because that's where my base is. I miss working with kids. And so I've shifted, and I'm working more with pediatricians and helping their patients deal with food related health issues, and helping them learn how to cook. And that has been, where my joy is. Not that I don't love working with people one-on-one with chronic health issues, but it's just, I needed that balance. I needed that,
right.
Just that exchange of just being able to work with kids, especially because veggies are so vilified. They're just villains in the world. And they just have. And I said, I've just coined myself the self-appointed marketing director for the veggies of the world. And I know that seems dramatic, but they get a bad rap.
Oh, for sure.
And it's one of those things where it's like, you can't go outside until you eat your veggies. You can't play video games until you eat your veggies. And even as we grow up, it's like the last thing that you gravitate towards eating. Veggies are not comfort food. And they should be seen as comfort food, because not only are they comforting for you, but they're healing for you. And so being able to introduce that to kids and helping them see, veggies in a different way. And then also, no parent wants their child to be sick. Nobody wants that. And then when they're confronted with that situation, it's like, you want to do so many things to correct the problem, like whatever surgery, whatever pill, I will do it, all that stuff. But it's like, if you just get ahead of it and make the choice to be more proactive and not be reactive, then it's beneficial, not just only for your kids, but for your entire family. And it's just a great thing to do.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's getting to like that root cause of like the issue, right? It's like you prevent it. So you're not 29 years old and dealing with cancer and having to go that route. It's like getting to that root at, elementary school age before that. And so it just never happens at all. And I think that's what we're missing as a healthcare system right now. I mean, it's really a sick care system where, like you said, we're being reactive and not proactive. And I think once we start gravitating more towards let's prevent it in the first place, like we're going to be on a whole better of a track. So, I mean, you said that perfectly. It was amazingly said.
And I think the thing about it is that, thankfully the marketplace is changing, the medical community is changing, and there's more options. We see more options in school programs where they're doing veggie, based programs. We see more options in hospitals now, where hospitals have more plant-based options. But the thing about it is, like, a lot of people still are in the unknown. They don't know if it's going to work. And then a lot of people are afraid, how are we going to make money? But I'm like, people need to be educated. People need to be taught how to shop. They need to be taught how to cook. They need to be taught how to do these things, because it's not that you don't want to do it. That's one thing I see even now, like in my group classes. I recently launched a an online wellness academy, and I have like an all-star support group and a challenge that I do every other month. And one thing I see is that, the remarks I get from people is like, I didn't know how simple this was. And I didn't know that the food could still taste, the taste could still be the same. Like, you think, oh, I want to have steak. I want to have all these meats, but I can use mushrooms and I can shred Brussels sprouts and it tastes like this. Like, are you serious? Like, you've got to be kidding me. And people just don't know that. And once they're educated, then they can just, go on and veg it forward with the next group and the next group and the next group. And once you have those tools in your arsenal and you know how to stave off all these chronic illnesses, because it's just such an epidemic, Casey. I know something that you even talk about, in your podcast and with so many people that you've interviewed. It's crazy. Everybody has a health issue. Yep. It's a situation where I lecture, I talk to people and you say, raise your hand if you know somebody that has cancer.
Everybody.
Diabetes. And nobody is not raising their hands. And it's weird to not have anything. And even when you talk about the body, it's like you have an internal pharmacy. We know that food matters, but what are you putting in your internal pharmacy? What are you putting in those medicine bottles inside your body so that when you need those healing foods and there's a problem going on in your system, your body is able to shoot out those good things. So it's like, okay, you do need veggies, but can the veggies taste like barbecue? Yes, they can. Can they taste like steak? Yes, they can. Can they, you have these Asian flavors? Yes, child, you can have all that. So you just have to, you just have to learn how to do it the right way.
100%. 100%. I mean, it's just all about like seasonings and like, I know I've probably said this a million times on different episodes, but like nobody orders a plain piece of chicken. Nobody orders a plain piece of steak. It's like you want the flavors of the seasonings, and like that's what you're craving. Like, and seasonings are plants. Like, I mean, once you kind of put that 2 and 2 together, and it's like, you find something that's similar in texture, and you can season to make it taste like those things. Like, your body wants the seasonings. Your body, like if somebody gives you not a raw piece of chicken, but like an unseasoned piece of chicken, like you're not going to eat that. People will say that's gross. You want the seasonings, and that's what your body's craving.
Right. And it's one thing too, is that we veer away from veggies. Like veggies, we know that veggies have healing, properties, and there's so much research that shows. And one thing I want to share with the audience is like why I'm so obsessed with veggies. And I haven't even shared this on my podcast. I talked about it on Instagram the other day, and I got so many DMs when I said it. Was when I got sick, one of my friends told me, she says, you need to get cancer insurance. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, oh, cancer insurance to help you pay like your medical costs and all these things. And she says, as long as you get it within 90 days of your diagnosis. And I was like, oh, okay, great. So I started calling to get cancer insurance. And, my mom was doing all the legwork, and then she was on the phone and we were on speaker answering all these questions, and they asked what state we were living in. And the lady on the phone bust out laughing. And we were like, what is that about? And she said, oh, your state is not eligible for cancer insurance.
Wow.
And I was like, what? So of course, we had to call, health coach on the blue phone. And I said, what's going on? He said, oh, you have a low veggie index. I said, what's that mean? He said, people in that area, if it's like less than 30% of the people eat a certain amount of veggies, then you're ineligible, because they know that you're going to have to use that insurance, and that area has a high incidence of, because there's low veggie consumption, that means that that state's more likely to have people that have arthritis issues, obesity and food related issues, cancer, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease. So they don't.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I said, and I said, they use these statistics to basically keep you out. And I'm like, so if you eat the veggies, then you're not going to need the cancer insurance.
Right.
Anyways, but I'm like, and then when I started, and this is when I went crazy, when I started looking at veggie consumption, by state, because we get, this is how many servings of veggies you need to have a day in order to be healthy. And now the range is, increased, because in order to not have a chronic disease, you need to have 10 to 14 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And that's the new high numbers. But what I was seeing, though, in a lot of these states, the average veggie consumption was 4 times a month. And that was it.
4 times a month?
for the median average for people in different states. And I look at these numbers like,
how is that possible?
Exactly. But then this is the crazy part. Not only was it 4 times a month, what was considered a veggie was potatoes and tomatoes.
So and like pizza and fries.
Right. So you know what it was. You know what it was. And then, other states, you get towards the West Coast and, their veggie consumption on average is like, 4 to 5 servings, a day. And so, they can get the cancer insurance because they ain't worried about them. But then you go to other states and the numbers haven't changed. The numbers have actually gotten worse. And even I was looking at them like a couple of days ago because I was just curious to see, what the state was, that I had formerly lived in and how the numbers increased. And there's been a shift where now people are having 4 servings of veggies a week instead of having 4 servings of veggies a month. And that's a big improvement. But so many people don't have veggies, and people make it more complicated than what it has to be. They don't, put veggies in your sandwich. Like, for us, it's like, oh, I can't be vegan. People say stuff like, oh, I can't be vegan. Oh, you're vegan. I can't be vegan. Well, can you eat veggies? And then people always look at me and they scratch their head and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. How many veggies have you had today? Oh, I had a veggie yesterday. I think. And I'm like, okay, so you don't want to be vegan, but you're not eating veggies either. So I'm like, okay, are you having a smoothie? When was the last time you had a salad? And then people make it, they say, oh, 8 is so much. You say, eat 8, feel great. That's something that you always say. I say to my friends, I said, okay, if you make a salad, that's like 6 servings right there.
Right. Or a smoothie. It's like double that. Because you can get and you don't even realize that it's that much. Like that's the best way that I think people could go if they're starting out, especially.
So I'm like, just do it. Put the veggies in your smoothies, put it in your juices, have a salad, put it in a sandwich, have veggie tacos. Think about having veggies at every single meal. Having 2 servings at every single meal is a great goal. Some people start off at 1, but get those veggies in, because if you're having those veggies, you're going to put those nutrients, you're going to put those minerals, you're going to put those vitamins, you're going to put that alkaline food into your system so that when that acid comes in with toxicity, it's going to bang it out. It's going to be a balance, and you don't have to worry about, them situations where you're in health debt. You don't want to be in health debt because it's hard to pay that off, child.
No, that's crazy. Thanks for sharing that, by the way, because that just blew my mind. I'm excited to research that more.
I'm going to send you some links, girl. Please make sure it's on a day that you have a happy day, girl. Go hang out with your daughter. You need to be joy. Because when you start looking at the numbers, you be like, I need a nap.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, for real. Send those to me soon. And what state were you living in whenever they? I
don't want to shame the state, child. I still have people there I love.
Oh man. Well, I'll figure it out.
I'll send it to you privately.
Okay, send it to me privately. That's just crazy.
And the numbers are still abysmal. And it's like when you see it, it's mostly children, and it's mostly women that eat less. Because even recently, I've been on this women's wellness protocol, and then the protocol that we've been working on. One thing that Pat, myself, and the other health coach on the project with these doctors, we started seeing a pattern that all these women that were in caretaker positions all had thyroid issues, hormone imbalance issues with adrenal fatigue, fertility issues. And it was all, of course, because of not having enough veggies. But what was surprising to me was everybody was in a position where they were caretakers, where they were stay-at-home moms, teachers, nurses, civil, social workers. And what I saw when I started, seeing that it was consistent, I was like, okay, what are y'all eating? Everybody's eating in the car. You're eating processed. Yeah. And of course, that's a consistent thing. You feed your family, but then you're on the go and you're in between and you're doing, what's quick, what's easy, and whether it's a drive-through. And I'm like, did y'all never think of going to the produce section? And I have to say, even answering that question, I didn't do that.
Right.
I was the queen of sweet tea and potato chips and what was in the vending machine. And so I was in that same camp because it's just an easy automatic thing. And that's why we have to shift it, where we make, veggies our friends, because they are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how you're using your platform just to keep pushing out that message, because it is so important. And is that what inspired you to want to start your podcast?
What happened was with my podcast, it's actually really funny. What the Health came out, and I was like, yes, finally, another documentary that's getting everybody excited, and, you see all these people. And one of my friends called me and she said, oh, what the hell came out? But now everybody's trying to find things that are more convenient for them. And I said, what do you mean? She's like, you haven't seen some of the stuff people have been saying on the internet? And I was like, what? So I started looking in, tags to see. And there was one girl that posted, I'm so vegan. Yes. Had Oreos for breakfast and Prigos. Yes. And I'm like, what? She said, what? And she was excited that, saying that vegan was easy because she could eat these processed things. And nobody was talking about eating veggies. And I think for me, the thing was, I don't want you just to eat veggies, but I want you to eat veggies that are going to help you with what you're dealing with right now. So what is it that you're going through that you need to know? What veggie do you need to have so that you will be motivated? Because, I'm dealing with this thing and it's a problem. So if you're going to start with eating these 1 or 2 veggies. And I'm like, and make them the star of your life. Because once you see that particular veggie is going to help you with whatever issue that you're dealing with, then it's going to motivate you to branch out. And I've seen that just, even with my small little tribe of Veggie Slayer crew members, they respond and they're just like, yes, this is what's happening. I mean, like I have a lot of teachers that listen to my podcast, my tribe. Whoop, whoop. So they'll tell me, oh yeah, that's even one of my most popular episodes is like, we started all doing smoothies at work together. And now we all, we're, one friend has this issue, so she's eating these veggies. And this person, has this issue. And they go, we do all that stuff. We make sure that everybody is eating the veggies that they need that are going to be most beneficial for them. And I'm like, that's what it should be, because it's the best wellness prescription that you can have for your health.
Right. And it allows you to like switch up the foods that you're eating because like while everybody's constantly going through different things. And like that way you can get a variety of vegetables and you're not just eating like the potatoes and nothing wrong with potatoes, but like potatoes and, the spin. I mean, like the basic vegetables, right, that are still amazing, but a lot of people don't branch out into new things. So this kind of allows you to switch it up because that's going to help the certain situation that you're in.
And there's so not even with helping your situation. It's just like that's one tier of it, but also there's so many interesting things about veggies. I was actually challenged by a group of kids they were trying to challenge me saying, we probably know more about veggies than you do because their teacher had started listening to the show. And I was like, what? So I was starting to have to come up with, different little things, little clues. And we have this Name That Veggie game. And I'm just like, the world of veggies is insane. I mean, some of the stuff that I find out about different veggies, I mean, how people actually would like, that was, certain veggies were actually used to like purchase homes because they were that valuable and that rare. And you don't even eat them. I mean, there's something that we don't even realize how great they are. And just even little cute clues, it's just like, it's history, but it's so exciting. And then like, certain veggies, when you cook them a certain way, they do certain things, or how certain veggies are produced, like in certain countries, like we get one particular veggie from one area and that's like, it supplies 90% of the world. And you're just like, what? Everybody's there. We're getting all of that from there. Like you don't even realize how amazing these veggie bays are.
Yeah. So, I mean, so that's really what fueled that then, right? Just to get on there and like, just inspire people with how amazing these vegetables are and just, educate them with things that they probably had never even thought of before.
Yeah. And then too, like my family and my friends, like, they always call me when something happens and their thing is always, that's even how I got the title of my show. They'll say, we don't want to talk about it. Just tell us what the veggie is. So I was like, oh, y'all don't want to talk about it. Well, we gonna veg about it. They're like, no, just tell us what it is and give us a recipe.
They're already wanting that quick fix.
Yeah, because they don't want to hear, well, this is what you're probably deficient in. You need to go get some, blood work done so we really can see. They're like, no.
That's awesome. No, I love that. And I love like everything you're doing with, with your podcast and like I said, with your platform and your social media platforms. And like, I just think it's awesome. And
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And like, are there things that you're working on just in the future that you want to just put out there and share with people, or just continue to put out podcasts, continue to put out just really awesome content?
Well, with this summer, we're doing a professional Veggie Slayer series, which I was going to take the summer off and Veggie Slayer crew was not having it. So I came up with the idea of, featuring different professional veggie slayers who are making a difference by either creating recipes and inspiring people to eat veggies, different chefs that I'm inspired by, and then also wellness professionals, the health coach, nutritionists that are doing the thing in the veggie community, and also doctors as well. So it's going to be a 12-part series. I'm super excited about that. Also, I launched my Veggies Are Bae Wellness Academy a couple of months ago because a lot of times people can't afford to do one-on-one coaching, but their schedules don't allow them to do, one-on-one coaching because they just have crazy schedules. And so with that, you're able to get interaction with me through a membership through a wellness app that I have for all my group classes. And so people can participate in online challenges. They can also be a part of the Veggies Are Bae All-Star support group. And, I do conference calls, every month for that. And we have a different theme every month. And then they get an ebook with that. Additionally, I have a spice line that I'm launching that
awesome.
We're doing in the commercial aspect first. For the first 6 months of the year, we're just going to focus on commercial accounts, but I'm always looking for testers. So if you want to be a part of the Veggies Are Bae crew and, test my spices out for me on your home recipes, please make sure that you DM me and email me, because I'm always looking for, home cooks that want to try them out. And I have a wellness app that I'm launching in January, because one thing too that I found just as a teacher, a couple of things with the podcast is like a lot of times people will reach out to me and say, how can you make this as a lesson plan, like for my kids at home? When you talked about the powerful produce selection, I want to use this in my classroom, or I want to do it as like a home activity. And, how do we get, more recipes from you? Because people say I'm really tight with my recipes because, remixing recipes is a lot. And I'm like, when I do recipes, I do customized recipes, ebooks for my clients. I don't put a lot of stuff out because I'm being asked to do this, for a doctor and, whatever project they want me to do, or for my clients. And so that's one thing I'm going to start doing too, is doing, recipes within the app, and the app is going to have like 6 different sections. And so I'm so excited that's going to be going forward. It's been so much work. It's so labor intensive because it's like,
worth it, right?
It is. It's been like, it's just like you think of one thing and then it's like, oh, what about this? And you're like, no. Like now I have to
I thought I was taking the summer off.
Yeah, like now I have to create more content. So I've had all the content created. I partnered with a lot of my teacher friends, and they've helped me get this forward, because it's like we want this just to be a normal thing that just like getting up, brushing your teeth in the morning, and combing your hair and getting ready for school or getting ready for work. That's how basic and regular having high veggie consumption should be. Right. And people just need support. And I know for me, what helped me get through my cancer process is because I had a good support team in place, but not everybody has that. I mean, that's one thing I see a lot in my coaching practice, Casey, and you may have even seen this in your practice as a chiropractor, is that a lot of times people get discouraged, not because they don't want to get healthy, but because they don't have friends or people that are supportive of their new lifestyle. That's 100%. The one thing I hear from people over and over again is like, it would be so much easier, but then you go to a party or this, but I'm like, this way you'll have a place to, just say, okay, hey, this is my crew, this is my fam. And, just you have that encouragement, kind of, with you in your pocket.
Right. No, 100%. I mean, whenever you have any kind of community that's encouraging and like you can share, like, this is what I'm struggling with, or like this recipe is awesome, or, what dish can I take to the Christmas party, or, you know what I mean? Like anytime you have like that kind of support group, I mean, the success is going to go up so much. So I think that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, so I know we've been talking about all your amazing platforms. So like, what is the best way for people to follow you on social media, as well as what to search on iTunes, whatever they're looking for your podcast, or wherever you do launch your podcast?
You can just search That Veggie Gurl. If you search That Veggie Gurl, pretty much everything comes up, or Veggies Are Bae, which is my hashtag that I use for everything and when you search it, it's even my extra credit sessions I have for my podcast. So, but you can find me on Instagram on Let's Veg About It podcast and That Veggie Gurl, and the same thing for Twitter as well. And then on Facebook, it's Let's Veg About It podcast. And then for my wellness academy, it's veggiesarebe.com. and you can take, my online wellness courses there, and also contact with me if you want to do one-on-one coaching there, or also at Let's Veg about-it.com for my podcast website.
Perfect. Yeah, all of those I'll put in the show notes. That way people can just go click and add you and subscribe to your podcast. So like, guys, if you're listening, like, go give her a follow like now. Like, you already have your phone out, so just go do it. Pull it out, press subscribe, and give her a follow, because you guys are going to love her content, and she's great. So just thank you so much, Annette. And just closing question that I ask every guest. Okay. But if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it's been something that's really been like your biggest takeaway through your journey so far. But if you just had one piece of advice to give, what would it be?
Really keep pushing. If certain things are with your wellness change and shift, don't let that get you discouraged. And what I mean by that is like, once, I, got through my cancer battle, I was diagnosed with a blood disorder, and it was like, oh my God, another thing I got to deal with. But it just meant I had to be vigilant towards eating things that were going to help me, keep that issue at bay. So if in your wellness journey, you tackle one situation and something else pops up, don't let that get you discouraged. Don't ever think that, oh, this veggie thing or this plant-based thing is not working out. It just means that you need more customization. You need to get more education, and you need to partner with someone maybe that's different, that specializes with that specific issue. So never get discouraged. Just continue to stay determined, and be willing to understand that the road to wellness is not a straight path. It's extremely curvy. And one thing I always tell to all my people is like, you can indulge in your taste buds, because people be like, you're so veggie. Do you ever eat anything that's comforting? Yes, I do. I always indulge in my taste buds, but I always make the choice to invest in my health. So stay determined, don't give up, and indulge in your taste buds, but make sure you're eating healthy comfort food.
100%. I love that, Annette. And just thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm just excited to share everything that you're doing, and just keep up with all of those amazing plans that you have in the future, because I know they're going to be amazing. And I definitely want some spices, so I'll be hitting you up about that.
Yes, girl. I want you to flavor it up, honey.
Absolutely.
That little cute little one you have. I love the pictures of your daughter. Her personality just slays me so much.
Oh, thank you. She's amazing. She's hilarious. All right, Annette, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Chef Annette. Her story is so amazing and inspiring, and her work is incredible. So be sure to give her a follow on social media to keep up with everything that she's been working on. You can find her social media links and podcast links that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drkaseyjohnson.com. That's DrKaseyJohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past podcast guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Annette's information can be found on my site as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Annette, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.